Hi there today. I'm here to chat with Koren, a writer and digital marketing strategist who's built an urban permaculture paradise in South Australia. And she often writes on topics of her own lived experience on creating simple strategies on how to live a more sustainable life. I first heard about Koren through my web designer, Alana, who happens to be her sister, a very talented family. Koren has helped me create copy for my website and has been really instrumental in building a better system for my online phone photography course. And I think I love working with her so much because she's got the incredible marketing skills and is very great at writing. But I also love that the way she operates her business is being mindful and thinking about people on the planet. It means that when she writes for me or creates content for me, it feels like I feel really held and secure. So that's why I've got her on today to have a chat about how to run a thriving business and life while still staying aligned with your values. So thanks for joining us today, Koren.
Oh, thanks for having me, honey. What an intro. That was beautiful. Thank you for those kind words.
Oh, it's very true. It's been a pleasure working with you over the last, I think, year and a half now.
Yeah, likewise.
Yeah.
Legend.
I'd love to know like a brief overview of sort of how you got to where you are now, because I guess from the outsider, when you read your Instagram bio or your website, you look like you're living a very kind of aligned lifestyle. So yeah, can you tell us how you got to where you are right now?
Well, I started my career as a journalist. I did this old school cadetship at this tiny little newspaper here in South Australia almost 20 years ago now, which is kind of frightening. And then I went full-time into journalism. So I wound up writing for a metropolitan daily newspaper in Brisbane. At the time, it had a circulation of 3.4 million people. So it was like one of those big roles. I covered state politics for a few years and it was really fun and fast-paced and quite rough and tumble and long hours and all of that. And I really loved it. It was enjoyable, but it also felt unaligned with my, greater personal values and desires. So in 2013, I packed it all in and I moved to Spain. I just upped and moved to the other side of the world. And that's when I started my own business, originally as a journalist. So I started writing as a freelancer and was a contributor to places like Frankie magazine and Peppermint magazine for many years. But I also started gradually retraining in digital marketing and picking up those digital marketing skills and discovered I really, really enjoyed it. And then a few years later, I stumbled across permaculture, and it was kind of like something clicked into gear, like all of these values that I already had around sustainable living suddenly had this really solid and practical framework to hang from. So I studied permaculture formally in 2017. I did my permaculture design certificate at the Food Forest here in South Australia. And that training coincided with moving back here to Tundanya, Adelaide, into this little house just a few kilometres from the city centre, this tiny little garden. And I guess all of that combined to kind of catapult me into this interest in applying permaculture at an urban level, at a city level, kind of here in the city rather than out in the country, because we can't all live out in the country. And it isn't just about gardening. I was interested in applying permaculture across my whole life, like my work and my hobbies and friendships and anything else. So yeah, I guess that's where I've ended up here. And that city application of permaculture particularly is quite important to me because our city population is just going to soar in coming years. So there's this United Nations statistic that says 7 in 10 people will live in urban areas by 2050, which is doubling the population size. I find that pretty frightening when I consider how we currently live, but I love exploring how permaculture can provide a solution at that urban level, especially, both the business level and the city level. It feels like a lot of positive change can come from those two areas.
Definitely. So for people who have heard of the word permaculture but are a little bit unclear about what it means, could you kind of give me a simple definition for, in layman's terms?
Yeah, to me, it really just simply is a practical framework for sustainable ways of living. It's not just about gardening either, it's a design system for life, which can be applied to literally any context. So, often there is a focus on growing even just a little bit of your own food because the globalized food system is highly problematic, highly unsustainable, has some pretty problematic impacts on our planet. But the movement's 3 ethics and 12 principles can be applied to literally any part of your life, including your job or your career or the way you market your business. So that's kind of what I'm really interested in playing with in my own business right now, is like how to infuse permaculture thinking across, all areas of my business, from what I do on a day-to-day basis to broader decision making and financial planning and that kind of thing.
Wow, that's awesome. I think that a lot of people have the idea that it's just for, some hippies with no shoes on living living in the middle of nowhere. But the more obviously reading that I've done about it, I think it's introducing and making it more sort of popular now. But I think a lot of people are still like unsure about what it means and how it applies, that you don't have to openly look like an alternative person to actually be living these principles yourself, and how important they are to implement into your life if we kind of going to keep living on this planet that we're living on.
Yeah, that's so true. And you don't need land. You don't even need to care about gardening. Like, I think a lot of people think, oh, this is a way of gardening. And it is. There's really great tools for gardening, but all of those frameworks can be applied to other areas of life too. So, and that's where it gets really interesting, I reckon.
Yes, definitely. So how do you, I'd love some advice on how you shift an existing business model into more of a permaculture mindset. So whilst also kind of remaining profitable. So I think that's the hard things that people feel like, and I do as well sometimes, the things that you do. How do you run a business that still feels like you are being good to the people you work with and the planet and to yourself and to your family, but also that you make enough money to survive on?
Yeah, that profitability point really is important. Like, I think of a permaculture infused business as one that prioritizes that triple bottom line. So people, planet, and profit. And that profitability is so important, because it's really difficult to feel stable and resilient and able to help in the world if you're under extreme financial pressure or you're not making any money. So choosing this way of business doesn't have to mean making no money or being unprofitable. It's definitely one of the key considerations, but you're also giving equal consideration to those other 2 elements as well, those people and planet elements. So I always like to start with kind of like the quick wins, because then you get some runs on the board and you get that momentum and that dopamine hit. So that's where if I was shifting a business model, that's where I'd start. Like, I'd have a look at my processes and my outputs and look at anything I could easily action without too much drama or too much financial impact. So that might be like swapping your business and personal finances over to a bank that doesn't invest in fossil fuels. Like, that's pretty easy to do and it doesn't really cost anything. Or maybe swapping your website hosting provider to a more green provider or something like that. Like, these are sort of simple little things that can kind of get some runs on the board. And then from there, I'd probably start to do some of the deeper work around your values, like getting clear on what values define your business, what they mean to you, and how all of that aligns with that triple bottom line, the people, planet, profit piece. And I really think permaculture is a great tool for this, because you can take those 12 permaculture principles and kind of work through them and think of ways to apply them in your business, to spark ideas for ways to make change. And if you have a bit of a look online, there are a few really good blog articles around applying permaculture principles in business that can give you some ideas. Personally, I've really loved the work, the framework of holistic decision making as well, particularly the model developed by the late Dan Palmer, who still has a website that's alive and full of heaps of really incredible, useful resources. And that work essentially gives you this framework for decision making, so that aligned choices are easier. Like, in your business, maybe you're faced with a decision, and if you're not clear on your values, it can sometimes feel unclear which path to take. But if you can get clear on all of those values and have a framework for decision making around that, a lot of that becomes easier, and it brings in the profit piece as well. So that's kind of never left outside of the conversation. I guess the other thing I'd say to that is there's a permaculture principle: use small and slow solutions. And I'd really encourage that approach with shifting to a more permaculture infused business. That I think a lot of the time in business, we're told like move fast, break things. And that's cool. Like that works for some people, but it definitely doesn't work for me. And I think there's lots of people that it doesn't work for. And that feels really scary and overwhelming and exhausting. So I definitely prefer that sort of move slowly, change something, have a look at what happens, have a look at, what impact that has on your business and how people respond, accept that feedback and then iterate. So yeah, it doesn't have to be something that happens overnight. You can kind of do this work slowly and iteratively.
That's great. That's really interesting about this moving slowly and then kind of waiting, because I feel like it's the sort of opposite advice that you get from so many people, like as far as how to run your business, is to constantly be moving all the time and, never have a break, keep going, push, hustle. And it's a very different mindset. But I feel like maybe it's just proximity bias, but I feel like that there is definitely a shift in general marketing terms about creating businesses and marketing strategies and the way you run it at a slightly slower pace and ones that kind of suit most people's nervous systems. Because I think people are more open now about, okay, this actually makes me feel really yuck.
Yeah.
I feel really tired and I'm burnt out and I've got, there's all these kind of health issues that arise from working in this way. That our body's telling us that it's not okay to work like that.
Definitely. And I think a lot of people see through that sort of older style of marketing. We all know, if I sign up for this freebie, I'm going to get slammed with sales emails from here on in. Like, I'm not willing to do that. I don't want my inbox sort of slammed like that, I guess. So yeah, one of the ways of moving more slowly in your business is kind of really building up that profile as someone who has depth, someone who can be trusted, someone who really means what they say and does what they say. And, that doesn't mean you're going to get a sale maybe within the first 2 days of someone meeting you, but you might end up getting a sale at the 1 year point of them knowing you, but they might become a customer who never leaves you after that because they trust you so deeply. And that just feels so much more human to me. Like I just want to do.
It absolutely does. Yeah. Because I think that's when I observe my own buying patterns, I'm the same, because I don't often give my email address away for free things and sign up, because I know exactly what people are going to do. And it's that, being really clear about, I guess, what you want from things. And when you talked about moving slowly, it's like, okay, that time and energy that you might put in having a genuine conversation with someone, a few times in person, maybe online, and then maybe in a year's time they might buy from you. And so it's like that really slow approach to making those moves. And then because you're already acting out of your own way of operating in the world and not out of a way of how to get something from somebody, then it feels like you can live your true self. And then the bonus is that by being that person, then people are attracted to you for that reason.
Yeah, totally. And you're more likely to attract people who like the way you work too. Like my way of working isn't for everyone. There's some people who love going really fast and trying all the things all at once. And that's really not me. So that kind of client wouldn't be a good fit for working with me. So yeah, kind of going more slowly and talking about that process means that the better, clients that are better suited to me, that I can do better work for, are more likely to knock on my door. So that's a win-win.
Totally. Yes. They're already, already worked out and sifted through.
Yeah, exactly.
So if with your marketing hat on and you're running a business to help people sort of market, what are one or two things, I guess, currently right now that you'd recommend to sort of gain more clients and customers, I guess, with that permaculture mindset as well?
Well, this dovetails perfectly into what we were just talking about, because the biggest thing I see is business owners kind of pushing themselves to be everywhere because they've been told they have to, or they think they have to. And then they spread themselves too thin and kind of don't do anything really well, or they start really strong and just peter out. Like newsletters are a great example of this. I'm going to write a fortnightly newsletter, and after the third edition, it just disappears, never to be heard of again.
Yes.
That's not a criticism, it's just an observation that we all do it. So one thing I always encourage my clients to do is start by thinking about their energy budget. Like how much time and energy do you actually have to dedicate to marketing? And I'm talking like a finite thing, like how many hours a week can you legitimately dedicate to this without affecting all the other things you have to do in your business or your profitability? And also, what do you like doing? Like, do you love writing long form, or do you love making video, or do you enjoy taking photos? Like, what kinds of things do actually come naturally to you that you like? And then focus your energy on the place where those two answers intersect, where you have something that you enjoy doing and enough time to do it. So as a practical example, in my own business, I have decided that I only have the time and energy budget for Instagram and a little bit of blogging. Like, I don't really do anything else, despite there being like 1,000,001 things I would love to do. Yeah, there's literally so many shiny objects that I would love to get my teeth into. But I really only have the time budget to do one post a week on Instagram, and that's not even really quite enough for Instagram. So I've just been honest with myself about that capacity and gone, all right, I'm going to be on that one platform and try and do it really well. And I can see the positive influence that has on my business. Like, I often get clients who know me through Instagram. Like, it's like that vets me. It's not an account about marketing, it's about urban permaculture. But I think, like you were saying before, it really helps to show my values and who I am and what I stand for. So I think that's worked really well, as opposed to having Instagram and TikTok and Facebook and Pinterest and YouTube and podcasts and all the things, but sort of sporadically being on them and not responding, having the space to respond mindfully on any of them. There are sort of some combinations that work really well. So I thought I'd just give them as examples. Like, for example, you could focus really heavily on website search engine optimization and then supplement that with Google Ads. They're a really good sort of pairing. Or you might decide, I love social media. I really want to be on social media. So you could make social media your main strategy and then pair that with some paid social media, some meta ads, so you can do some retargeting there. Or you might say, I really love blogging or podcasting, and pair that with email marketing and doing a newsletter so people see your new episodes. So you can kind of, I guess, look at the smorgasbord of marketing things that are out there and pick things that you enjoy doing that are most likely to have, move the needle, but you don't need to do anything. Like, no small business owner can. I guess the second thing I would say is, if you have DIY'd your website, and that's totally awesome if you have, but if you've done that and you're seeing your business start to gain traction, that would be the point where I'd say get some help with your messaging, definitely your messaging, and possibly also your design, like pay someone to help you. I see so many people with really great products or services, these really heart-driven businesses, but all of that story and that opportunity for connection is lost on this like poorly written, clunky website with unclear offers and, a pipeline to buy that's like 16 clicks deep or something like that. So yeah, I think the beauty of doing your website first, if you're looking at paying for marketing, is that you end up with a whole heap of key messaging that you can use elsewhere. Like, you can grab whole sentences and repurpose them on social media or email marketing or whatever. So it does give you a lot of bang for your buck. And if you work with the right person, you'll get the benefits of search engine optimization. So you'll start to get that traction of people just Googling and finding you, because that's another thing I see a lot of clients who have DIY'd their websites are just getting, very little traffic from search engines and just missing out on that kind of free advertising kind of piece of the pie. So yeah, that would be my 2 cents. If you've got a bit of money, pop it into your website.
Yeah, that's really good advice. Thank you. And I definitely would put my hand up for being all the shiny things. Like, oh, look at that.
Yeah, it's hard to say no.
It is hard to say no. But I really like your the alignment piece, where if you're into doing podcasts or videos, and maybe having an email list so that it sends those out, and then with I just like those two matches and how they work together well. I think it's really good advice.
Yeah. And if you're picking something that you kind of already like doing, you're way more likely to keep going with it. If it's something that's really tedious. A lot of people say to me, I hate social media, I hate the concept, I don't want to be on there. It's like, well, great, don't. Like, there's heaps of other options. Yes. You don't have to force yourself. We can find something else that will work for you. So yeah, I guess that's kind of another counterculture approach. Like that's not the sort of thing you're told as a business owner. But I guess if we're looking at it from a permaculture perspective and that sort of sustainability aspect, it's sustainability for yourself as well as the person in the business. So all of these sorts of things start to come into consideration.
Absolutely. I think when you're driven by your own interest and excitement, like it gets you so much more mileage.
Yeah.
And then the energy and that juice that you get from that following something that really genuinely interests you, as opposed to a marketing formula that just doesn't match at all.
Yeah, forcing yourself to
yeah, because then you feel you actually want to go back and do it again. Like I've got a few things on the go at the moment, like this YouTube clip, and I keep looking at Substack again and working out. And every time I go on there, I know that my body it's like definitely a yes. And I've been observing it for like, maybe about 10 months now. And I'm like, wow, I can feel the excitement, but I'm just trying to figure out what that means. And so it's sitting with that as well. It's like, I know, yes, this is the space that I want to be in, but it's okay. It will present itself on how to make that work. Yeah.
I love
sitting
that.
with it.
That's awesome. Yeah, finding that internal yes, but then not rushing into, I'll just do anything, still waiting to figure out the right way forward. Oh, yeah. That's so cool.
Yeah.
Good on you.
It's only taken me a million years to figure that out.
Yeah, well, that's the way it goes.
My body actually knows.
Yeah, I'm learning that too. And it's amazing. But yeah, why didn't I know this earlier?
Exactly. I know. I feel like I had known this in my 20s. Life would have been so much easier.
Totally.
So from the outside, Koren, like I look at what you're doing and you look at your bio and you've kind of got this amazing lifestyle in your backyard. It looks incredible. You've changed a lot of your house to make it more sustainable. You write, you do marketing for businesses, and you seem to kind of contribute in the community. How do you do all those things? Because when so many of us have trouble saying no and feeling overwhelmed, I feel like you seem to do a very good job of balancing your life. How do you kind of build those parameters?
Well, thank you. That was like really lovely of you to say. And yeah, I definitely do have a multi-branched business where I do a lot of different things, and that's sort of by design, because I've realized that I really enjoy that. I love the diversity. That's part of my personality and my brain type, that I really like that. And also part of it is resilience, like not having all your eggs in one basket kind of thing, having a few different income streams. Like I'm a solo mortgage owner and a solo business owner. So yeah, having a bit of resilience built in helps me to feel safe as I move forward. But I guess I do have two really serious feedback loops in my life. So one is my health. Like I have a chronic back injury that leads me to daily pain, and sometimes that can flare up and get pretty bad. And I also have a neurotype that's pretty prone to sensory overload and to burnout. So I think it's really only been in the past few years that I've gotten really serious about my capacity. In the past, I've definitely overworked and sacrificed like my health and my personal life to get the work done. And I've had some fairly serious health outcomes as a result of all of that. So now it's interesting that you talk about learning to say no, because that's become a really key part of being able to do it all,
Yes.
It's like learning to say no a little bit more often, which definitely is uncomfortable. I would love to do it all, but I just can't. My health and energy levels won't allow me to. So the way that I kind of figure it all out is that I use a couple of systems in my business to help me work out my capacity. So one is time blocking, where I literally just put everything that I need to do into my calendar. So that's everything from, working with clients to volunteering, writing stories for the ABC or the Guardian, preparing for this kind of interview, going to meditation, like going to yoga, hanging out with friends, like all of that goes into the calendar color blocked. And then I can see at a quick glance at a week view how hectic or hopefully otherwise my week is looking. And then I also have built in what I call quarterly rest weeks into my business. So every season or every 3 months, I just take a whole week off. And, often I'll do really nothing in that week. Occasionally I'll go visit a friend interstate or something like that. But I really try to keep that as a total rest week, a week to fuzzle around in the garden and read 5 books or something like that. And then since January, I've also embraced a 4-day work week. So I'm having every Friday off, and again, trying to leave that completely unscheduled and just let it be whatever it needs to be. So the combination of the time blocking and then these like fixed rest spaces means I'm much more aware of my capacity. Like when I look at my calendar, I'm like, okay, I can fit that in, or it just unfortunately can't fit in, or something else needs to drop off. So I found I'm not very good at just saying no off the bat, but if I've got all this reasoning behind me, there's clear data, this color-coded data sheet that I can't argue with, then it does become a bit easier to say no to. And I guess what we're talking about there is kind of learning to live within your means and your capacity. Like I think as a society, that's kind of something we've broadly forgotten how to do on all fronts, like even financially. Look at how many people live beyond their financial means. So I guess I like talking about this aspect of my business as just one kind of alternate approach. Like my structure might not work for everyone, but I think the point is, especially when you own your own business, you can really lean into like your own nervous system and your values and your energetic levels, and then choose a way of working that's best for you. And for me, it means that, yeah, I can do what looks like lots of different things, but I'm kind of just doing a little bit of everything. And I'm very mindful of like, okay, this is currently what's manageable, but I probably can't take on much more than this.
Yeah, that's such good advice. I think that's often something that I sort of fall into the trap of when I look at my calendar. Like I do have things like shoots booked in and meetings and things, but then I don't necessarily always account for on the next week when I have to do the digital work for those, then I'm not blocking out that time. I just think, oh yeah, I've got to do it. But I'm only kind of booking client facing things within the calendar. And there's a few things as far as business planning that goes in, but I think that's some advice I'm going to take on from what you've said about actually blocking that out. So if I'm going to create that project, then the following week, what does that mean? Because then the reality of you being able to say yes to things is very different when, like you said, you've got the data to back it up. And I think that would make me feel really comfortable in doing that.
I love that. Yeah, do it. It'll change your life.
And also I think the last year I've been working around my cycle, which has been amazing. So now I've been really strict with it, and it's completely changed my life. So I don't book any client facing things the week that I'm bleeding, and all those other 3 weeks, especially when I'm in like my prime and I'm feeling like super pumped, then I normally have like quite big shoots booked in, or like meetings or like a gathering with some other business people where it requires a lot of my energetic self. And then the other time when I'm feeling a bit ratty, that's normally when I'm like organizing things and being like really and then the week that I'm feeling really flat, I just don't have anything that requires me to be, I guess, creative or requires a lot of myself. And that's been life-changing. I was like,
that's
wow,
incredible.
like this is insane. Why didn't I do this 20 years ago? Instead of forcing myself to push through when you're just dying and you just don't feel like it, your body's telling you no.
Thank you. I need to look into that. That's I'm vaguely aware that kind of system exists, but it's not one I've researched and looked into. So thanks. Do you have any resources that you'd recommend for that?
There was a book that I read. I will include it in the notes and I'll send you a link to it. I think her name's Kate something or other.
Right.
I probably only read the beginning part of the book. The rest of it I just didn't really need. It was like, oh, okay, right, I get this. I get this principle. Yeah. And it really made sense. And I think that the difference I can see in how effective I am with the types of work, just I think creatively, when you're, physically I'm lifting cameras and I'm, engaging with someone and they require a lot of my energy. I can't do that when all I want to do is hide in bed under the doona.
So lay down, be horizontal.
Exactly. Yeah. Like I'm real, like that's faking it too much.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's been really life-changing. So yeah, that's
Oh, that's a hot tip. Thank you.
Yes, a hot tip. Yeah.
The other thing that popped into my mind was quarterly planning. So I think this is something that Danny Gardner talks about, and I've sort of co-opted her idea, but I like the idea of, I sort of use this for bigger picture business stuff, like, if I want to do a major upgrade of a system or learn a new thing or whatever. So at the start of the year, I just sort of wrote a list of what would I love to get done this year. And then I said to myself, well, realistically, time-wise, you can probably do 1, maximum 2 of those a quarter. So like, what are the 4 to 8 things you want to do this year? And then I've kind of mapped them out by quarter. And that's been really refreshing too, because it's helped to feel like I'm continually moving forward in my business, but without all of the overwhelm of like, there's 64 million different directions you could go in. And like, I could change them. Like I could get further in the year and decide this other thing's now a priority. But yeah, I guess what we're talking about here is a lot of like ways to minimize all of the decisions around you that take up so much of your attention to think about and decide on. It's like you kind of have those decisions already made. Like I already have my calendar. No, I'm bleeding this week, I won't be able to do it. Or whoops, I'm already overbooked, it's a no. Or no, my priority for this quarter is upgrading my website, so I can't go learn this AI thing that looks really cool or whatever. Yeah, because you do just get presented with so many opportunities in business, and that's where some of the churn happens, I think, when you just kind of rush to try to learn everything or do everything, and then you lose the strategy, and then the profitability falls, and it becomes this sort of momentum thing. So I guess sort of staying the course a little bit more because of knowing which direction you want to head in.
Yeah. So really with that permaculture mindset, thinking that it's all organic and, free flowing in a way, it's actually not. There's a lot of, because within nature itself, there's the seasons and there's like, there's the structure of things. And I think if we are aiming to kind of follow that in our lives as well, and listening to the season in our body and the season and having things pre-planned so that we know what our values are. Like you said, it's so much easier to say no to something, to all the shiny things that come up in our social media feed and people that you speak to, and to be really, hitting your own values and what you want, not what everybody else wants from you.
Yeah, that's right. And permaculture, it is a design system. Like at the core of it is, how do you design something? Like what is the plan or the structure for this? So, what falls out of that can be this beautiful freewheeling kind of organic thing, but it still has some structure beneath it. And that, counts for the garden as much as for the way you run your business. So kind of applying that framework and that structure gives you the scaffolding to then make better decisions from, I've found in my business at least.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for coming on today. It's been amazing. You've just covered so many great points and things that I'm going to take away myself.
Oh, thank you. What a pleasure. It's so lovely to speak in person. And
I know it is. Yeah. So I'll include all your details at the bottom. So the best place to kind of stay up to date with what you're doing is via your Instagram and emails, or like, what do you think? What would you like?
Yeah, definitely Instagram for now, which is just my name, Koren.Helbig. And I do have some time blocked for later in the year to launch a regular newsletter. So that's kind of on the cards. So there is a subscribe button for that on my website, and that's kind of a coming soon.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for your time. I look forward to meeting you in person one day soon.
Yeah, bring it on.
Yes. a glass of wine, please.
For sure.
in your garden.
That sounds amazing.
Thank you, Koren. See ya.